The rain had been falling all afternoon. Dark clouds hung low over the city, and the streets were shiny with water as people hurried home before nightfall. Inside a small apartment on the 4th floor of an old building, 30-year-old David sat alone at his kitchen table. In front of him was a single envelope. White, thin, and heavy with meaning. David had been staring at it for almost 20 minutes. He already knew what it contained. Another rejection. He didn't even need to open it. Still, his hands trembled as he slowly slid his finger under the edge and tore it open. The paper inside was short and formal. Dear Mr. David Carter, thank you for your interest in joining our company. Unfortunately, we regret to inform you that we cannot offer you the position at this time. David closed his eyes. Another door closed. Another opportunity gone. He leaned back in his chair and rubbed his tired face. 3 years. That's how long he had been trying. 3 years of applications. 3 years of interviews. 3 years of hearing the same polite words. We'll let you know. We chose another candidate. You're not the right fit. At first, David had believed success was only a matter of time. After all, he had worked hard his whole life. He had studied engineering in college, graduated with good grades, dreamed of building something meaningful, but reality had slowly chipped away at his confidence. When the small startup he worked for collapsed during an economic downturn, David suddenly found himself unemployed. At first, he thought it would be temporary. Just a few months, maybe, but months turned into years. Savings disappeared. Friends moved forward with their lives, careers, families, success, and David felt like he was standing still while the rest of the world ran ahead. That evening, he pushed the rejection letter aside and stared out the rain-streaked window. Maybe this is the end, he whispered. The room was quiet, only the sound of rain tapping gently on the glass. David stood up and walked slowly toward a dusty shelf near the wall. On it sat a small wooden box his father had given him years earlier. His father had passed away 2 years ago, but before he died, he had told David something important. Whenever life feels impossible, his father had said, open this box. David had never opened it. Until now, his hands hesitated for a moment before lifting the lid. Inside was a small folded piece of paper. Nothing else. David opened it carefully. Written in his father's familiar handwriting were just a few simple words. You are always one more try away from success. David stared at the sentence for a long time. One more try. It sounded so simple, but after years of failure, it felt impossible. Still, something inside him shifted. A tiny spark. Maybe his father had known this moment would come. David folded the paper again and placed it in his pocket. Then he looked at his laptop sitting on the table. Slowly, he walked back to the chair and opened it. His email inbox appeared on the screen. Most messages were advertisements or old job rejections, but one subject line caught his attention. Final interview. Opportunity Brightcore Engineering. David frowned. He clicked the email. Dear David, we noticed your application from several months ago. One of our candidates has withdrawn from the final stage of hiring. If you are still interested, we would like to offer you a final interview tomorrow morning. David blinked. Tomorrow. It felt sudden, unexpected, almost unreal. He leaned back and laughed quietly. Maybe this is the last chance, he said to himself. The next morning, David woke up before sunrise. He shaved carefully, pressed his only good shirt, and practiced answers in front of the mirror. But more than anything, he remembered the words in his father's note. One more tree. When David arrived at the Brightcore building, his heart was beating fast. The lobby was large and modern. Glass walls, bright lights, people moving confidently through the halls. For a moment, he felt out of place, like someone who didn't belong. But he took a deep breath and walked to the reception desk. Good morning, he said. I'm here for the interview. The receptionist smiled politely. Please, have a seat. They'll call you shortly. Minutes passed. Then a woman stepped into the lobby. David Carter. He stood up. That's me. Please come with me. The interview room was quiet and professional. Three people sat across the table: the company director, a senior engineer, and a project manager. They asked about his past work, his ideas, how he handled failure. David answered honestly. He didn't try to pretend his journey had been easy. Instead, he told them the truth about losing his job, about years of rejection, about learning persistence. When the interview ended, the director leaned forward. "David," he said, "why do you still keep trying after so many setbacks?" David thought about the question carefully. Then he smiled slightly. "Because success only needs one door to open," he said, "and I've been knocking on every door I can find." The room became quiet. The interviewers exchanged thoughtful glances. 2 days later, David's phone rang. Unknown number. His heart raced as he answered. "Hello, David," a familiar voice said. It was the director from Brightcore. "We have good news." David held his breath. "We would like to offer you the position." For a moment, he couldn't speak. 3 years of struggle, hundreds of rejections, and finally, one yes. That evening, David sat again at the same kitchen table where he had opened the rejection letter the night before. But this time the room felt different. Lighter. Hopefully took the folded note from his pocket and read it again. "You are always one more try away from success." David smiled, because sometimes the last chance you almost ignore becomes the opportunity that changes everything. And the only reason it happens is because you decided to try one more time.